Okay, welcome to the Node.js Foundation TSC meeting for January the 2016th. Sorry, the January the 26th, 2017. It's a lot better. So there are a couple people present today. There's who is there? There's myself, Jeremiah Sinkfield, William Kapke, Josh Gavant, Michael Rogers, Michael Dawson, and Jen Turner. I don't think there's anything to put down in terms of stand up. So we're going to go through our agenda and try to just give an update on and knock some things off of it. First, we're going to do a review of the last meeting. So add info about YouTube access. This was merged. I guess it was discussed at the last meeting and then approved. Does anyone have anything else to say about that?
Yep, it was merged, just little blurb in the README, that's all.
Cool. General update to member travel fund doc we're going to be talking about today. Formation of a security working group. Does anyone have anything to say about that? I think it might like actually have governance docs now, but I'm not like I don't think it's chartered if it needs to be.
Yeah, no, nothing is
going through the ramp up phase there.
I know like their initial boilerplate and all that is actually merged now.
Yes.
merged with a disclaimer on it saying that it's in progress.
Yeah, well, it says it has a note. So it says, note, this group is in the process of seeking charter by the TSC. So I guess they're just using the same issue.
They're kind of, that one thing is that, is it a TSC working group, a CTC working group, or a TLP? And then there's also just in general, like there wasn't a meeting this past Friday, and originally Sam had been going with every 2 weeks. I don't know if there's a meeting scheduled for next week. I just was wondering what's the activity there? What's the state?
Do we want to get through the rest of the review stuff, because that kind of leads into the first agenda item we have here.
Okay. Updating the copyright. We'll probably give an update on that again if there is one. Add scope of the responsibility for the TSC. Define node core continued. I believe this was finally merged.
Yeah, it was merged.
I know it was approved. It was merged. Yay. Okay, good.
Yeah, there were several nits on that, and I kind of just cursory glanced at it to see if some of the things were added in. It looks like they were. So.
Okay. Well, if someone would like to follow up on that, they can do so. We talked about the community committee, and probably around the proposal about that. We talked about NVM and version management, and also Node-inspect, which the TSC approved to bring in, and the CTC also approved to bring it in the foundation. So I believe we have moved it in, and that is we figured it was under the scope of our existing responsibility since we already ship something almost identical to it. But we will be still delivering an update to the board via Rod Vag that we brought in, just to be transparent about that. All right, unless there's anything else. Today there's a bunch of things. Security working group, I guess we can continue the conversation on that. If there is a conversation.
Yeah.
I just have a question, like where it's at and what's happening with it.
Yeah, I would just follow up with Sam if you. He'll know exactly where the status is.
Okay.
I don't see anyone getting. I don't see progress going on coming to a consensus on exactly what the group is. So I kind of feel maybe they might need some help solidifying that.
I think the main thing was that the next step that they were waiting on was the actual data from the security data to actually start deciding what to do and get going. So I think that's what's holding things up a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah,
I think
might
in
be right
terms
there.
of what they do, that I think there was like 3 main things that were pretty clear. It's just that there were the main impetus for getting it started in the first place was the data, and the data's not shown up yet.
Michael, do you have any possible update on that?
About which aspect, sorry?
The data for that we were supposedly moving into the foundation from Node Security Project, I think.
I think I sent an email about it, and I believe that I got a response from Adam and whoever else I added to it, possibly Rod. I'd have to look into it.
Okay.
But we should be getting it at any time. The bill of sale, which essentially transfers the ownership of everything over to us, that's in the board deck for Monday, so that'll get finalized next week.
Okay. Yeah, if you could just keep up with that, and when we come back, I guess, if you're around, give an update, or I guess Rod will, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, we'll have the whole thing done, so we should just be able to hand over all the data, not just a sample, sometime next week.
Cool. Anything else on that? Doesn't sound like it. So version management and NVM. So the word version management, I guess it's like an investigation group, or I'm not sure what we call it. It's an open group for people to join that care about version management, that want to discuss it. They came back to us and said that they didn't think it was a good idea to move NVM into the foundation, at least at this point in time. So that was a couple weeks ago. Is there anything about this that we need to keep it on the agenda? Or do we need to actually go back to that issue thread and close it out saying we're not interested at this point in time? What's the way forward with that?
I think the next step could be me, could be anyone in that thread, just kind of summarizing where we're at, and I guess basically saying, yeah, we're not going to accept it, and somehow close or give one last chance for comments. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to me. I'm not 100% sure about closing it. I don't really know what the right thing to do there is. At the very least, I think we should make it very clear that it's definitely possible for NVM to reapply in the future if it desires. Yeah.
Yeah, let me look through the thread. I mean, if one of you wants to do it too, like look through the thread and see what's not clear. I don't know exactly what I would write now, so I can't tell you that, but if somebody else wants to take it on, they can too.
And we're certainly running with a short audience on this right now. So yeah, just take it back to GitHub and maybe move it towards closing it out. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Should we keep it on the agenda until we do that, or can we remove it from the agenda? We haven't really had much to say about it in like weeks, so.
Yeah, I've personally felt it should be removed for a while now. So I'm for removing the label.
I think one thing I would have a question for you guys is if we conclude we're not taking an NVM, what do we do with the version management repo? Do we just leave it and see if anything happens there in the meantime?
So the version management repo is like its own group for discussion of this general thing, not specifically MVM. So I think, I mean, it will probably somewhat continue in one form or other. I'm not sure how much action there will be, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly a lot of positive feedback about the idea of having an official Node version manager. But getting the volunteers to kick off that effort and have some product come out of it is, is up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still really like to ship a version management from like a version manager for the install. So I might like propose that separately. But yeah.
That was, Jeremiah, that was part of the discussion at Node Interactive, and it comes out in some of the notes that we talked with Miles at the time and Corey Butler.
I mean, I was there.
Oh, you were? Okay, I couldn't remember. So yeah, that was one of the prime use cases for a runtime manager, was to be the backend for an installer.
Yeah, but sorry, not just like the new installer. I mean, from like the current OS X installer, I'd still love it if there was like at least an option to install a version manager for that. I think that would help a lot of people. I mean, that's kind of like a technical thing, but I think relating to this thing, I will probably propose that separately.
Cool. Yeah, Jason Ginchero from here at Microsoft actually wrote up an alternate for NVM, and was part of the discussions there was a JavaScript. It is a JavaScript oriented one. But part of like that's nice for us because we want to test Chakra sometimes, and it helps us like swap out the engine. It's the kind of thing that maybe in the future could help with swapping out NPM with something else if people wanted that, or a private client or whatever,
Right.
Other components of the runtime. Yeah, so it definitely seems like it could be something good. We just don't have anyone actively working on it.
Does anyone want to follow up in giving a summary to the NVM thread? I could if necessary, but I have a lot of other things to catch up on too.
You can assign it to me. I'll get to it soon.
Okay. You're not like actually not a collaborator on this repo, are you? I can't actually assign it to you. Okay, I'll figure it out later. So for the copyrights, is there anything to update on this copyright stuff?
Well, I can speak about the date. So there are two issues there. The date one, really, if you take it more of a high level than just the date, it's kind of me wanting to know if all these projects that we're working with and the license that is there and written is right. So it really comes down to like, we don't get proactive feedback from the legal group saying, like, you guys are doing good or you guys are messing up. So it would be great if at least like yearly or something, we could get an oil change on it or something from the legal department, so we're in good standing on all of these projects we have. But
I mean, that's certainly doable. There's just some ways that we need to go about doing it. Like, we certainly, if we do have a legal issue, we don't want to go and broadcast that to the whole world and be like, hey, there's this horrible legal problem in Node.js. We probably just want to take steps to fix it first. But also, I mean, yeah, I like, for instance, I know that we actually did go through an IP audit when we started the foundation, and those things just cost a fair amount of money. It's something of a racket. They run your code through some fancy software that magically figures out if you have any GPL code in it, that kind of thing. I feel like they're mostly a scam, but it does make people kind of feel warm and fuzzy about it. So we can look at how much it would cost and how much we really want and what we want to see from that kind of an audit.
Yeah, I guess I would probably see it like a process of where it's, we state we are starting a review, and then we go through maybe a private fixing of things, and then at a certain point we get a passing grade.
Yeah, I mean, there's some gradation here. Also, we we currently are sitting on a bunch of legal issues that we've already been told about that we haven't dealt with yet, right? Like, for one thing, like we don't have copyright information in all of the files, and we know that we need it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because like like we've already been told that that's a problem, and it's a weird kind of cross DCO issue or whatever. So I think once we solve like our pending issues, we can definitely look at ways that we can make the code more acceptable legally. I think also, like, the more that you go down this rabbit hole, the more that you're going to get suggestions for things that will improve the legal situation of the code, but may introduce barriers to contribution and adoption, right? Like, you can get more legal protection if you put these barriers in, like, CLAs and stuff like that. So it's really a matter of, like, how far down the rabbit hole the project wants to go in this respect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it then comes down to a list of recommendations we've gotten, and we choose whether we want to pursue them. As far as
I totally agree. I just think that we should probably knock through the ones that we've already been recommended first. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, we have a lot of other projects, and I know Node Core is like the star child here, and so a lot of people focus on that, which obviously has a lot of attention and probably a lot more need. But we're pulling in all of these other projects. Node Inspect and Node Report is just these side things that are going. Even the installer that you started. So it's just kind of all these other ones on the outside. Could also make sure, it would be nice to know they're lined up correctly.
Lined up in
yeah,
what
I'll say, go ahead.
I was just asking, lined up in what sense?
Like, maybe you missed that part of the call. Really, it's kind of like knowing that the legal team is looking at what's happening here, at what us non-lawyers are doing, and saying, we're not doing something horrible. And so the issue I opened was about dates. Something I was working on, stumbled across it, and I wasn't quite sure if we should be updating those dates or not. And so.
Right, okay. Yeah, so like standard questions like that every year. Do we need to update all the copyright date?
Or should we, try and push people to not put dates in at all? Is that a thing?
You shouldn't put dates in. I'll say that right now. But
yeah, but I think the copyright dates may be a requirement, because I know I'm like 90% sure that for us at IBM, like once a year, yeah, okay, the dates all get updated. And I don't think we do that.
They tell us not to put a date.
Say what?
So
Microsoft, they say don't put a date.
But I think the date may be needed for the copyright.
That's what I'm saying. Like when I create a new repo, I never put a date because that's what our legal team has told me to do.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, so there's a very good write-up by Kyle Mitchell on the MIT license that goes line by line over everything. And the line that has the date in it, he talks about specifically, like, this is a holdover from what people used to do pre-70s, where in order to get copyright, you actually had to assert it and say that this is my copyright, and in doing so, you would assign a date to it. But in like the Copyright Act from like the 1970s, they asserted that if you create a work, you own the copyright on it, period. You don't have to go through that assignment piece. And so it makes the date somewhat unnecessary. I think that the history of it at this point is that a lot of people and projects use it as an easy way to know when the last time that the file was updated or that it went through some kind of legal check. A lot of these policies predate Git and predate good version control tools. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Additionally, if it has a date, we have to leave it alone. That is a thing to it, though. We have to leave it in there.
Yeah, unless we want to get the permission of everybody who contributed to it, because because we adopted a license that said specifically that we can't alter the attribution, and that's part of the attribution line. So, One thing that I'll note really quickly about new projects. So the board and the legal committee did already create a list of legal requirements for bringing in new projects. And that is a list of essentially acceptable licenses, along with some other practices like adoption of the DCO. We should be making sure that we follow that. We should not fall out of alignment with that for new projects that we bring in, and we may have at some point. Particularly, I don't know offhand that every single sub project has a DCO in it, but it definitely needs it if it doesn't have it. So we need to go through that and comply with what they've already kind of laid down. And that's kind of the base level of protection that we should be looking for. Beyond that, like asking for additional legal review, like William's suggesting, I think that it is a good idea, but we probably want to take the recommendations that we have for core, knock through them, apply those recommendations to the sub projects, and then potentially go back and say, hey, is there anything else that we should be doing? Because all of the advice that we've gotten so far for how to deal with core does apply to all these sub projects. We're just trying to get them done in core first, right?
I just think that core would be is a big hurdle to get over, and it kind of impedes all the other in that roadmap for accomplishing it. So that's why I was saying to tackle the other ones because they're easier.
That may be true, but core also is the largest legal liability. So a lot of the sub projects have less code that we're worried about copyright issues in or patent issues and stuff like that. Also, some of the sub projects aren't necessarily used by everything or could be replaced more easily than the core code. So I think that the way that they prioritized it isn't about, what is the easiest way to get these changes through. It's more, what is our biggest legal liability? Let's solve that first and then move on to, the next round of legal liabilities. And we haven't even started to get into what we would like to maybe do about the NPM ecosystem and providing a little bit more legal stability there. We're not even at a point where we can start discussing that because we haven't solved the biggest problem, which is core.
Sure. I mean, I see your point. I guess I would say I would suspect someone like Netflix would be have a different urgency on their postmortem tools that they're using and making sure they're all covered because that's going to be important. Everyone's going to have their own version of important.
Certainly the LL Node and Node report are in an easy stage. There's few contributors. They're all collaborators are very friendly. So I think if there was something we wanted to change and use them as a template, it's not a bad idea as a starting point. If we were to decide we no longer wanted dates, there are ones where we could probably make that change.
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, I think that, again, it's most important that we just make sure that we comply with the existing guidance that we have, which definitely says that we should have a DCO on all of these. And if we don't have a DCO, that actually does open us up a bit more as we add more contributors to make things more difficult. So
yeah, those two I know for sure. We put the standard, guidance and contributing and all that as part of bringing them in. So.
I would like to encourage that the list of recommendations is added to the TSC repo in the document so that people can reference it if we can.
That'd be a good idea. Yeah.
We definitely can. That was passed by the board as a document to hand to the TSC. So that's a public document that we can reference.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Michael, do you want to put that up there? Or do you want to forward it to one of us?
Yes. Somebody just send me an email, and then as I knock through the other emails, that will be in my to-do list, which is basically my email inbox.
William, I'm nominating you. Can you do it?
Yes, I'm making a to-do for myself.
Sweet.
It literally could just have the subject be, send the legal thing to TSC. That's all I need. I just need.
Okay. Do we have anything else on this, or can we move on to the next thing? Let's move on to the next thing. Governance in TSC. So revised membership rules for the TSC charter. Does anyone have an idea where we stand on this?
I think the last comment was from James saying he just needs to incorporate other people's comments. I looked at that, I think, earlier today.
Yeah, he just says he's been waiting for additional review.
I think last time we talked, though, he said he had that, and he just really needed to just go do it.
Yeah, I think that was the summary too, because I still see. I don't see any of my comments still here, so must have been updated at some point, but it probably needs to be updated again. I'm just gonna ping him again about that, and yeah. Unless anyone has anything else. General updates to member travel fund doc. Was this approved last time we looked at it? Does
So
anyone remember?
Anna commented at the very end. Last time we basically said another week and then we'll merge it in. She wrote at the very bottom today that she's not going to make it. Let's see. So she wrote, I haven't merged this PR yet because I'd kind of prefer if a TSC member merged this. I don't think this is urgent, so feel free to wait on Michael's response to my last comment.
What was her last comment?
She just says, I think in cases where travel is directly booked by the NF, the person in question doesn't even know the total amount.
If that's the case, though, then somebody at the foundation can fill in that blank. Like, I mean, I know how much it costs because they sent me an invoice for it.
Right.
And like, if somebody replaces me someday at the foundation, they will also know that. Yeah. So I mean, it's easy enough to figure out. We don't have to go hunt for it. It comes through in like our regular kind of accounting processes. But,
oh, and that's because you left a comment says, I don't know if this needs to be in the doc, but in the case that where we don't provide a strip in, but instead do a reimbursement or book the travel ourselves, we should update the doc with the real cost.
Yep. And also we can wait until the entire, we should also wait until the entire travel thing is done to update the cost, because it'll be a combination of their flights, their other hotel reimbursement, and all those things may come in at separate times, right? Like I got a bill for Anna's flight really early because, or actually that's not true. I didn't get it that early because they only send the LF one invoice a month. But I knew the cost of it fairly early because they told me. But it took like another 3 or 4 weeks for the hotel reimbursement to come through from Anna. So. Yeah, I mean, we can just wait until the entire thing is done and figure out how much it costs. But I would put in, if we're doing that, we just need to put a note in there that we need to update it later or whatever. But this will just help the TSC know when they're getting close to the line for needing to re-up the allocation, because we don't have a huge allocation right now. The idea was that this fund would just get updated and the TSC could go back to the board and say, hey, we need more money. Here's what we spent the money on before on really important stuff like sending our contributors to CC39 meetings. And then the board will very easily just kind of update it. But we wanted to make sure that we had that relationship ongoing, and that we didn't just have a giant, pocket of allocated money that nobody was spending like we did last year.
Right. So ultimately, this is all about kind of finalizing a process for making sure this information gets updated. So what I assume is going to happen is, if someone doesn't know the actual price, it'll just sit as an issue or PR open, and it'll just get pinged occasionally saying, "Hey, Michael, what's the final price on this?" And then it'll eventually get PR'd. So it might not be fast, but it'll be a process. I say that we go ahead and merge this, and if there's any other little things we want to adjust, we can do that in a different PR.
Yeah. Well, one kind of guide that you might want to look at is the Brooklyn.js organization. They basically have a big JavaScript file that has line items with comments for every expense and every piece of money that comes in, and it just always kind of totals out to whatever their ongoing expenses are, which is really nice. But like, we may want to put in that document, in addition to what we've doled out for money, how much money was allocated and when. And that way, it is kind of an ongoing tally of how much money you have left, and there'll be a better signal for when to ask for new money, and that needing to ask for new money will be a good reason for the TSC to continue to make sure that the amount of money totaled in there is accurate.
But that could be as simple as just having the remaining balance in that thing, and when you PR a new line, you subtract from that, right?
Yeah.
To keep it simple.
Right. So I wrote a comment back in response from what Michael said to Anna, and then also requested that the doc be updated about just updating the cost once the actual cost after the travel is done. I don't know if we have enough people here to approve to merge this. James and Brian already approved it. Michael Dawson approved it. Who else do we actually need to have approved this?
I'm not on the TSC, but I approve of it.
We might need to put out an email or something. I'm not really too sure what to do about that.
I don't think I'm technically on the list either, so.
Are you not?
Well, yeah, no. Not on the list that shows in the repo anyway. I think Rod wanted to get the...
Am I the only TSC person on this call?
Yes, I noticed that earlier. Well,
this is why you really need to get those membership rules updated. Like,
exactly.
This has been going on for way too long. Like, this is not okay.
I think the other one landed, so hopefully we can get that landed, and then we can fix it up. Because if you go to the README page, there's 10 or so people, right? TSC and
there's 12 people total.
Right, so we need at least 6, I think, if it's a vote kind of thing, isn't it? Can't remember.
Yeah, we probably should have at least 6.
So, okay, I just want to say here, I feel like we've gotten a little bit too timid about committing procedural documents. Like, we're now much more timid about them than we are about code, and that's not really necessary. Like, it's supposed to be the same processes we have for code, and they're supposed to be continually editable like code. So, and the more that we kind of like get nervous about committing them initially, the harder that it gets to add and iterate on them later, which is a really negative fact that we want to avoid.
Really, in my mind, it should be unless there's objections, right? It can land, and it's been out there a long time. So.
That is literally the process. Like, I know I wrote up that process. Like, that is the process. It's the same process that we have for code that we have for other procedural changes. I just think that people are less confident about the process than they are about code. But yeah, I mean, we want them to be easily updatable. We want them to just land if nobody objects. If we're at that point, I'd just go for it.
Yeah, we should probably like actually discuss that when more TSC people are around and kind of get agreement on that, and like go ahead and start doing that more without voting on everything. That'd be good.
I mean, again, though, this is the process. It is documented. You would be following the current process.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll just wait for the update on that and just merge that policy change then. Sure.
Okay.
Part of the issue, I mean, once we're discussing it, is that we don't usually get quorum anywhere near quorum. Most of the people on the list are not really here, and we can't change it till we have the processes in. I think we kind of suspended any changes to membership for a year almost because we were waiting to clarify all those processes. So yeah, like if I want to go through and clean up some of the old issues, I can't because I can't close them.
Yep, agreed. I think, we need to land that other doc and then fix that up.
So, okay, couple things. The membership thing, like, yeah, we definitely need to be more cautious about that. And I'm not entirely sure that there's consensus there. Now, in general, you only need quorum if you don't have a consensus. So if nobody objects, you don't need a quorum to contribute something or to commit something or to change the process.
Well, Michael, I think
as long as like nobody within the right amount of time has objected to it, then you can do it. The membership changes are a little bit different. Like you do have to be more cautious there. That's totally legitimate. Now, like I do think that somebody has dropped the ball here in just driving a consensus around getting those membership changes in. Probably because the few people that we have in leadership here are like overloaded. But this was one of the reasons why we wanted to split the role into so that there was somebody driving the TSC and somebody else on the board. If we're continuing to have these problems, like we need to just bring them back to Rod and work on like a longer term solution, so that somebody is actually like responsible for driving the consensus around these things that aren't moving.
Yeah, I think in the case of the membership one, if we just chase James and get the last updates, it sounded like it was pretty close to being there, right?
Yeah, for that one, I feel relatively confident in merging the travel policy change thing, so no one's objected to it that I know of.
Jeremiah, will you land that?
Well, I requested some changes on it, so yeah, probably once it gets updated.
Okay, so you can respond to Anna's ask also about someone else merging.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything on that? All right. Rotating meeting times. So Ben opened an issue about potentially having rotating meeting times on the TSC like we do for the CTC. And that's partially because he can pretty much never make this time slot for the TSC meeting.
So being that you already aren't getting anywhere near quorum, if moving it means that even less people show up, I'd be cautious about that. I mean, there's not a lot of people. Like, I mean, the solution may not be rotating the meeting time. The solution may just be changing the meeting time to accommodate Ben. Like, I don't think that we have anybody in Asia that needs to be on this call, right? So we basically need a time that'll work for Rod and for Ben if Ben wants to be on.
Yeah.
I'll be the devil's advocate. Like, are we excluding potential future members, or like would like Shigeki be able to attend more?
Right. Shigeki was the one, the other person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my main question is, like, are they actually interested in these procedural matters? Like, one of the reasons why we split the CTC and TSC was because a lot of these people, like, didn't want to be involved and wanted to be involved just in the code stuff. And so far, like, they might poke into, like, one or two issues a year.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can't even really be engaged in the GitHub part of it, which is, you know, time zone lists. I mean, it takes months to get anything committed. It's not like they didn't have time to contribute to it. If they're not engaged in that part of the process, like, I don't know why you would start altering the meeting times. It seems kind of cart before the horse. Like, when this happened on the CTC, it was, you know, a lot of people that were engaged in GitHub constantly weren't able to attend the meetings because the meetings were rotating times. Like, that was a really, you know, good reason to start rotating the meeting times. If people who are not otherwise engaged very much in the TSC's matters want to, for some reason, also be in the meetings, I don't quite get that.
So, Michael, you're kind of saying we should determine the needs of the people that are part of the group and go from there rather than the other way around.
Yes. And well, I think that that should be a general principle across the project, right? Like, and also, I mean, and this is happening in the CTC and elsewhere. Like, the main mode of contribution needs to be on GitHub and need to be completely, you know, accommodating of every time zone. And these meetings, regardless of when you have them, are hard to attend and hard to contribute to, and that they should really only be used as tiebreakers and to handle, like, really contentious issues, right? Like, it should be the goal to try and work out the majority of issues just in GitHub. Yeah, and if the people contributing there are having a hard time being in the tiebreaker meetings, that's when you adjust the time.
Well, we are proposing a membership absentee. What am I trying to say? Having a minimum number of meetings that you need to attend to continue on. So we certainly should, make sure everyone, like Ben, can reasonably attend some before, calling it a voluntary resignation. So other than that, so basically, I'm saying we should at least accommodate maybe a second meeting time. We're moving all of it to a meeting time, all of them to a meeting time that works for Ben.
Yeah, like, is there a time that works for Ben and Rod?
Yeah, kind of opposite ends of the earth there.
Right.
I don't remember. I'm not sure what the latest status of the table that was maintained is.
Because Ben's in Europe, so I don't think they're quite the opposite.
So I think the issue also may be the day, because if I recall, like when we set up this meeting time, when everything was combined, Ben was in it quite a bit, and it was chosen because it was like late for Ben and early for Rod, but enough that they could get on. But I think Thursdays may be a bad time for Ben. He may have some kind of other obligation. So the solution may actually be moving the day to accommodate Ben.
I think we should duke this out a little more on GitHub and see what happens there. I'm certainly open to it. I have a hard stop at 1 o'clock, so I'd like to leave some time for Q&A.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Yeah, let's go back to GitHub on that one. Do we have anything to discuss about the community committee?
There's lots of discussion going on there, and talk about best ways to communicate, whether it's going to be IRC or Slack or anything else. So if anybody has opinions on that, feel free to drop over that repo and check that issue out. And there's just been some documents floating around, getting some nits about what the community committee is. What else am I forgetting? It's been active there, though. Encourage everyone to go check it out.
Yeah, sounds good. I don't have anything to discuss about it in particular right now. So I don't think anyone else does from the sounds of it. All right. We still have a couple people watching. If anyone has questions, particularly about Node.js Foundation processes or anything that sort, please put those into the YouTube chat or in node-dev on Freenode IRC. We'll keep this open for a couple minutes to answer any questions that come up. So as for the next meeting for this group will be on February the 9th, probably the same time, unless rotating meetings end up in between there, but I highly doubt they will. And there's also a Google Calendar for this, which is linked in the minutes doc, but we should probably put that maybe something somewhere like on the actual TSC repo too.
This is the same. That's the same calendar that William keeps for everything. It's just the general calendar.
Yeah.
You just put a link there because everybody asks every meeting, "Can you share a link?" So it's easy.
Yeah, for upcoming meetings, there is a LTS meeting on Monday, it looks like, and a board meeting. I'm not sure if the board meeting will be broadcast or not. Michael, maybe you know.
The board meeting?
Yeah.
The board. It's definitely going to be broadcast like normal. Yeah. It's yeah. Well, the first hour is the public session. So yeah, and you've got it in the calendar already too. So that's great.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions. I did solicit for them earlier, so I think we're going to end here. Thanks everyone for showing up again.
Talk to you guys all next time.
Bye.
Later.
Yeah.